everyone. Welcome to the show today. I'm excited about our guest. His name is Robert Towle. Check this out. He's the CEO and founder of 636 Advisors, and he has a new book coming out in just the next couple of months. We're going to talk about that a little bit. The title of the book, Don't Be Dumb. I think that's advice that, pretty much everybody, especially in today's day and age, could benefit from. The book is about how entrepreneurs face limiting beliefs and what they can do to kind of overcome those and kind of get to the next level. So welcome to the show, Robert. Glad to have you.
Thank you, Allan. Glad to be here. Appreciate the invitation.
Yeah, I really want to get into the book. I'm very passionate about young entrepreneurs. My niche is startups. I help people get their businesses off the ground and get them to a point where they can really scale them. So I think there's a lot that we can learn today from you. Tell me a little bit about your background. Where'd you grow up? Where'd you go to high school?
You're asking the complicated questions first there, Allan. So
exactly.
Actually, I'm a third generation military brat.
Okay.
So I grew up all over the U.S. as well as in Europe. Went to 3 high schools between Colorado, Alabama, and Texas.
Wow. Okay.
So my third high school for my senior year was there for about 9 months and graduated from Copper's Cove. And so got to see a lot of the world as a result, got to see a lot of different things, a lot of different people, adapt to a lot of change in different environments, always on the go, particularly earlier in my dad's military career. So It was a frequent moves where my younger sister was a little more stable as he got further up the ranks, so to speak. So, but it really did help a lot and see a lot of different things and get exposure to things. So got to meet people all over from, whether it was distant relatives in West Germany at the time to people in Southeast Alabama at my first job at a bike shop to working as a dishwasher at Golden Corral in Central Texas. So all sorts of different things that way.
Love it. It's so good to get that experience, right? I spent 2 years volunteering my time in South America, in Chile. Wasn't able to see family. It was all about just giving back to the community and helping where I could. And it changed the trajectory of my life, right? There's just something about being exposed to new experiences, going to different countries, being around people with different cultures, speak different languages, and just not focusing on yourself, right?
It puts a different perspective. It puts a different perspective on things, Allan. It really does, and it keeps it from being more. I mean, we can certainly, if I'm stereotyping, people in the U.S. can be a little U.S. centric. Even in individual states can be a little state centric sometimes.
Yeah.
And I think all of us fall guilty to that. But seeing and being exposed to different things, you see that there is more to the world and there's different lifestyles and you see the good and the bad. Yeah. My time in India, that I've spent a lot of time all over India, and it's the richest of the rich that I've ever seen and the poorest of the poor that I've ever seen. And you see both of it within blocks of each other. And it really does put some things in perspective. Just like in Brazil and seeing the favelas and the things that go on there.
Oh my goodness, yeah.
It's just amazing. But it does let you appreciate what you've got and look forward to things. And
yeah, no, 100%. And there's, because I've spent so much time outside of the United States, it's helped me appreciate so many things that I wouldn't otherwise, right? And it's not to say that, we're necessarily superior or whatever. It's not about that. It's you start to really appreciate things when you don't have them anymore. Right. And what is, this is super applicable to entrepreneurs, right? Entrepreneurs, in the beginning, they're kind of in the honeymoon phase and there's so much that they want to go out and conquer the world. And then they start running into some of these demons, right? They start running into challenges that are coming from outside. They start running into challenges that are coming from inside. What do you say to somebody that's they haven't started their business yet, but they're all gung-ho. Are you warning them, hey, there's going to be some things happen and this is what you need to do? Or do you kind of just let them go for it?
I think you do. And there's some old school, so to speak, approaches such as a SWOT analysis of strengths,
Right.
weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, that
Mm-hmm.
you look internally to your own strengths
Mm-hmm.
and weaknesses when you're doing a business plan for your business. And you have to look at it and say, just because I'm a fantastic plumber, that can mean one of two things. I could be really successful opening my own plumbing business, or it could mean I'm a really great plumber that drives the business into the ground because I don't know how to manage a plumbing business. I know how
Right.
to be a great technician, and
Right.
I'm really good at this. And you have to almost visualize having a different hat that you put on at different times to say, I'm managing the business. I'm not being the best plumber now. I'm now in charge of marketing. And maybe I can't hire somebody to be in charge of marketing, but I'm going to be the marketing person this afternoon and make sure the marketing takes place. And often entrepreneurs lose that perspective and gravitate either to what they're really good at, but yet the other stuff doesn't get done, or worse still, they gravitate to what they're not good at. Okay, I know how to be a plumber, so therefore I'm gonna do what I'm gonna sit in the back and I'm gonna make sure the books are right and the profit and loss statements are done correctly. Well, great. The profit and loss statements are going to say you're losing money because you're not out being a plumber and you're not building
Right.
business. And I've seen it. I've seen it so many times because I had the benefit of my early career. I mean, really, really early, helping my grandfather with his shoe store that was
Mm-hmm.
essentially a two-person shop, and helping them on summer vacations and holidays and so forth, and seeing how he ran that by
Mm-hmm.
himself as a child with the depression himself. How did he do it? And was very, very successful with a 10th grade education. Unbelievable success for his family. But then I also helped in a printing franchise for the first few years of my post-college career, helping those new locations where they became almost instant entrepreneurs. They had enough money. They'd been successful in a corporate career most of the time,
Mm-hmm.
is where
Mm-hmm.
they got their money. And then they decided to open up a printing franchise. Did they know anything about printing? Absolutely not. But they had to follow the model and have the right people to support them and follow the right steps and process for it to work and keep everything in balance. And that's, one of the lessons is you're never really over the hump. And I saw that was a real trap for entrepreneurs of, okay, it's month 3 and I hit break even. Okay, I don't need to
Mm-hmm.
worry anymore. And then guess what?
Yeah.
Sales go straight over the cliff and
Yeah.
all your working capital is burned up. And now what are you going to do?
It's so hard, right? It's so hard for entrepreneurs because I mean, we didn't have any experience with this, right? With starting a business and getting to this point where we have to make decisions. Some of the most important decisions we make are how do I spend my time and who do I bring along? Who do I hire? Who do I have help me? And so there's this balance. So especially early on, cash flow's not super steady, where you don't have the cash to just hire everybody to replace you, right? You so
Right.
so you're right. So you're in this balancing act where you're like, okay, number one objective is I got to keep my business afloat. If I can't keep
Mm-hmm.
my business afloat, I can't keep my people, I can't pay my bills. My vision doesn't matter. Um, but on the other hand, man, a lot of entrepreneurs, they don't want to be a technician forever, right?
Right.
Everybody's read the E-Myth, Michael Gerber, right?
Mm-hmm.
We
Exactly.
know, like, hey, at some point I need to stop working in my business and start working on my business.
Indeed. Absolutely.
What's the analysis? How does an entrepreneur know, hey, okay, now I'm going to step back, not 40, 50 hours a week, but 10 hours a week. I'm going to do more
Mm-hmm.
marketing, going to do more admin. What's the analysis that they should go through for that?
Well, I think there's, the actual writing out, and if you build off of what things Gerber said, of writing out the word chart as it will be, as it
Mm-hmm.
should be,
Yes.
and saying
Yes.
what roles do you need to have, and then how would you staff and how many hours are needed for those roles, then that really tells you that's the roadmap to that. Because it says, I'm small enough now, but I need 10 hours a week of marketing. Well, are you doing 10 hours a week of marketing? and I need this many hours of outside sales to do this, and I need this many hours of bookkeeping, and I'm going to outsource that by hiring a firm to do that for me, or whatever the case may be. Here's many hours of customer service. So I think if you lay out that org chart, and then you take to, I've actually gone back recently to, it sounds fairly old school these days, but to the Stephen Covey 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Classic planner aspect of the roles and responsibilities, and week planning, not day planning, because I love my list and I love knowing what I need to do.
It used to be a Franklin Covey planner, right?
Yes,
like the
that
actual paper.
Absolutely. I actually have gone back old school to a planner, because I realized that I was doing great things every day with my to-do list, but was I doing what I needed to do for the week? I'd end the week and go, okay, so what? What did I really accomplish out of this? Great, I crossed all the things off the list, but was it the right things? Were the most urgent, important matters taken care of? Or was it the stuff that was just nagging at me on the list to cross something off a list? So I think if you lay out those org charts and say, what do I believe I need to have in my business plan to execute to get to my goals and objectives, and you plan over a longer scale, like a week. I'm not talking a plan over a year, plan over a week instead of a day. It helps you measure and know, well, if one day goes off track, okay, I need to adjust tomorrow. Maybe I need to get up a little earlier, put a little pot of coffee and start a little earlier, or I need to skip a lunch meeting that I had for something else, and instead I'll do this, and keep things back on track. It really does help. Some of the basics, it really does help.
No, I love it. Let's chat about your book.
Sure.
Don't Be Dumb. All right.
Yes.
Tell us a bit about it. When is it coming out, and how is it going to help my listeners? My listeners are in the early phases of their business. They're either kind of trying to decide whether they're going to pull the trigger, or they've recently done so and they're really wanting to scale their business. So that's who you're talking to. Why would my listeners, what could they benefit from reading your book?
That's fair enough. I think, first of all, the phrase comes from actually advice my dad gave me when I was in junior high. And it didn't make my mom real happy, because she was looking for the Leave It to Beaver, something that sounded real nice. And he just looked up over his coffee and his newspaper and said, yeah, don't be dumb. And didn't make her happy, but it's pretty good advice. And it's not that I've always followed it, but when you think about it, if you can evaluate what you're doing and saying, does this make any sense or not? It's a good way of looking at things. And you pretty much know, your intuition tells you, yeah, this doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Stop doing that. And what I would hope is that readers would get, there's a lot of stories that are of my business career and experiences all over the world, in small businesses and large businesses, and things that went right and things that went wrong. And that they would benefit from the mistakes of what I would call the hand on the hot stove approach of, I've been burned by these things. So if they can take tools and tips and techniques to avoid being burned themselves, that would be, an ideal scenario of these nuggets and ideas that help them and go, oh, I can do it this way, or don't have to make this mistake. This is something I need to look out for. One that comes to mind particularly is, I talk a bit about recovery strategies.
Okay.
And the idea is you're going to make mistakes. Tell that to a budding entrepreneur, and they're going to go, no, not me. I've got it all figured out. I got it together. Right. I know what I'm doing. Because they do, and they have the spirit and the passion, and they want to do it right. But everybody makes mistakes. So in your planning, do you have a recovery strategy? Do you know what's going to happen if what you think is going to go right goes wrong? Number one. Number two, do you have the ability to pull that cord and go, yep, this is going wrong. I need to go to plan B and adjust, because the time, like you spoke to earlier, with the cash flow, with limited funds and resources, if it's going wrong, you may have a very limited time to save something and recover. Everybody makes mistakes. You take on big scales. I remember joining a major computer company and thinking, oh, I'm going to learn how the big guys, the big group gets it done, and I'm going to hit a really big thing, and I'm going to see how it's done right. And going home every day after that going, oh my goodness, what did I just get myself into? Because it's just more problems on a bigger scale. And I think realizing that you need to do that, I've had one section of the book that speaks to the worst conference call in the history of the universe, which may be a slight exaggeration, but to me, it was the worst call, that I made a big mistake.
Okay.
I got onto a customer's conference call system to introduce a major project, and it was a 30-minute call, and I used their system, not ours. Big mistake, because their system introduced every attendee as they joined the call, and they had a habit of joining late. So for the first 10 minutes of the conference call, it was beep, Allan's joining, beep, Sally's joining, beep.
Oh, wow.
Every time I would try to speak, I would be interrupted with this introduction. And I had my IT person in the background. I'm like, fix this, get this fixed now. And he could do nothing about it because it wasn't our system.
Not your system, yeah.
And then I got about 10 minutes of free, clear talking time. And then people weren't satisfied and they started leaving. And yes, it told you when they left.
Oh.
Beep, Allan is left. Beep, Sally is left. And I sat there at this call, and we've been working for 4 years to win this client over. 4 years for a massive project, international project. And I sat there, and my team was around the table, and we were like, this is it. We're done. The project's over. There's no going. And I actually went back on advice that was given to me very young, of own your mistakes and just don't. I had a window, and I can't pretend I had a recovery strategy beforehand, other than the concept of recovering, and said, I have to own this now. What's the recovery plan? Get down the hallway now. We were in London, and I'm like, we're all being shipped home, and we're not even going to get the flights paid for. This project is done if I don't do this right. And got down there and owned it, said, look, I made a mistake, used a system that didn't work right. My team was incapable of turning this off. My suggestion is we have another call tomorrow using our system, 2 calls, and we record them for other people in case it conflicts with their schedule. And we can get back on the right foot of this immediately.
Right.
We rearrange our schedule and get this done. And they were so appreciative of me owning it that I got to them, the leaders of the project, before anybody else made phone calls complaining.
Right.
And I owned it. I didn't blame it on them. It would have been an easy path to say it's your fault.
Of course. Yeah.
And instead, I took it all right on the chin.
Yeah.
And the project turned into a good year and a half of a very successful business transformation project in building a new shared service center in Poland, actually. It was very successful, but I thought it was done, Allan. I thought it was, we were done. We were, pack your bags and get out of the building.
Yeah, that's, and I recommend that my listeners listen to other podcasts, read books, and learn from other people's mistakes. There's two hesitations I have. One, their mistakes, you have to be able to analogize, right? Because that scenario that you just explained is probably never going to happen to my listeners in that exact same way, right? Zoom has all of its weird issues now, but we're starting to get some of those ironed out. But the lessons are still there, right? When you're pitching something, make sure you control the environment, make sure that you control the systems, make sure that you establish a system so that you have their attention for X amount of time or whatever. And so that's my first issue is, hey, when you're learning from other people's mistakes, don't limit it to that fact set, right? Fair, and I'm going to give you an example of that. And then my second hesitation is, man, some of my best lessons have come from my biggest mistakes. And those are imprinted deep in my heart. Those are some that I'll never make again because they were so egregious or whatever. Let me share a story with you really quickly about my first point. I remember watching The Apprentice with Donald Trump. This was years ago, but, and I can't remember the details, but somebody printed some flyer or something without a phone number on it. And I remember watching this episode and he got fired, right? You're fired, kicked off the show. And this was years before I started my first business. I'm in business for about 3 months. I order, 50,000 flyers or something. And I didn't check the phone number. and all 50,000 of them were printed with, I don't even know whose phone number it was. It wasn't ours. I think the printer did it as a placeholder.
Mhm.
But that lesson had already been presented to me and I didn't apply it. What do entrepreneurs to do? How do they close that gap between, oh, I've heard this somewhere before, and how do they make it applicable to the issues that they're facing so that they don't repeat what they've already learned?
I think there's a very good place in the simplest terms, Alan, is don't be casual about things.
Okay.
I mean, was I guilty of being casual? Oh, we can use your conference call system. Fine. One less thing to worry about. Was I casual about it? Yes, I was. I mean, I could have tested it and we would have known right then. Okay, great. We'll use your system. Let's test it the day before or 2 hours before. And I got casual about it. That's definitely on me. Number two would be if you really look at identifying risk and coming up with potential mitigations beforehand, and actually charting them out into what's the likelihood of the risk occurring and what's the impact if this risk occurs. You can end up in a scenario that's sort of a red, yellow, green risk matrix that says, okay, so out of my 7 risks identified, here's the 2 big dogs that could really take my legs out from underneath me. Let's make sure we have a strong mitigation plan for those. We should have a mitigation plan for all of them, but let's absolutely make sure that those with the highest likelihood and the highest impact, we've got those covered and completely avoidable, and they're on the table, and we're not hiding from them and playing ostrich and saying, yeah, but that's not likely to happen, because I've been in enough scenarios that anything can happen.
Right.
Take the example of what we've gone through with the pandemic. Nobody could have predicted what was going to happen.
No way.
Except I know a book that was written in 1976 that predicted a coming plague and called Plagues and Peoples, that followed the impact on plagues throughout history from a macro historical standpoint, that predicted there was one coming and what the impact could be on society, and took you through patterns in society through other cultures and historical events, all the way up through the mid 1900s, and spoke even to the Spanish flu, where most people don't have historical memory of that occurring.
Yeah. No, that's
and yet
fantastic.
there was a book that spoke right to it. And did it even strike me, having read that book and really thought highly of it and of the author, and I still didn't see it coming.
Yeah, exactly. And I think there's so much information out there nowadays for entrepreneurs, people starting their businesses, people trying to get to the next level, that it's like sometimes they feel like they're drinking out of a fire hydrant. Right?
They do.
And so how do they organize this? How do they decide, I'm going to focus on this area? What are some things that they can do to make sure that they're absorbing the information that they need to absorb?
Well, I think there's some dedicating some time to it. And that's where I like the week planning concept of saying, when is your time for reading and digesting information? You probably can't do it continuously. Right. Is that a Sunday night activity for you when you're planning your week? Is that a Saturday morning over a cup of coffee? I don't know when that might be, whatever works best for you to digest information. But then I think there's also scenario planning, because I can also think of an entrepreneur that struggled because they did so well. And you wouldn't think that would be the case, but they did well in just about everything except one thing. They blew the doors off sales-wise and production-wise. Amazing results. Cutting break-even time it used to be 18 months. We were aiming at 9 months. They got it to 3 months. Amazing success. They forgot about the aspect of collecting the money. And the problem is their sales went up so fast, but it was all on a receivables basis, that they didn't have the right system in place and the focus on collecting their money.
Yeah.
So suddenly they had this great success, but they had all the bills to pay that came with it.
Right.
And they had to be able to go after their customers while still keeping the doors open. So the next 3 months of their business were a real struggle out of having tremendous success, which was unanticipated. It was a surprise not to them. It was a surprise to me. we had to sort of rewrite the playbook on that one to figure out what could we do for them there in Denver, because it was such a surprise. We hadn't had anybody achieve success like that before.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, and the thing about being an entrepreneur is it would be a lot easier if someone could tell you, hey, this is going to happen, that's going to happen. These are going to be your strengths. These are going to be your weaknesses, but that's not the case, right?
That's true. That's true. And I think the other side is a danger. And I'm very grateful to working in my grandfather's shoe store in the middle of North Carolina, because he had a very old-fashioned approach to things, as opposed to technology is going to solve everything and make everything better. And I think we're all a little guilty in this generation of, if I just implement this tool or this app or this website, or that'll make it all better and make everything good. And he was very much he wasn't against technology, but he literally had a secret code to where he could look on any box of shoes and know exactly what he paid for it.
Huh.
And he used a substitution code with a city in North Carolina, a 10-digit city, 10 alpha city, that he has a substitution code. So at a glance, he would know exactly what he paid for the shoes. So
Wow.
when it came times to offering sales or discounts for group sales or anything like that, where he could make money but still move product without any system, any computerized database, inventory, anything, at any point in time, he knew exactly where he stood.
Love it.
And I learned that trick from him when I was like 11 years old. And I was like, how is he doing this? Because he just offer a discount, but yet we'd always make money. But he'd move product out the doors. And if it was a slower moving product, he'd offer a bigger discount. And
Amazing.
we had the benefits. You may know the race car driver, Richard Petty, but NASCAR champion many times over, but was from the same hometown as I'm from.
Okay.
And we would sell them shoes. Richard and his wife would come in and buy shoes and boots from us. And
okay.
From what I heard last year, he still got a pair of boots from my grandfather's shoe store that he still wears on occasion. So
that's awesome.
And talking with some of the members of his family last fall. So
awesome. That's fantastic. Well, Robert, I'm excited to read your book. Where can people find out more about all the great things you're doing? Where can they contact you?
The right place to go would be the 636advisors.com. Okay. And we have links there for more information. We talk a little bit about the book upcoming, as well as some of the projects and clients we're working on today, because we've got a mixture between smaller businesses that we're assisting, but also some larger organizations like the American Red Cross that we're also assisting with some transformation efforts on the side. And but they can sign up and be added to a mail list and get more information about the book, and also get a discount code for the book, which we're aiming at publication in early October.
Okay.
So coming up soon. It's a sneak up on us pretty quick here.
Yeah, it is.
So we're in the final stages of just making sure, and back again to owning your mistakes. Whatever mistakes are in the book have to be mine at this point. There's no doubt. It's been edited professionally and everything else, but I'm sure I'll find one or two here in the proof copy that comes to me this afternoon. But get those done and revised, and we want enough time, but also allow people to pre-order an ebook version of it too online on Amazon, so they could get it at it that way and learn more.
All right. Sounds great. Well, thanks for your time, Robert. It was a pleasure. Encourage all my listeners to check you out, to buy your book, learn from some of Robert's mistakes so that you don't have to kind of repeat them. So thanks for joining us today, Robert.
Thank you, Alan. Really appreciate it. It's been a good conversation. Hope you have a good afternoon.
If you've enjoyed today's podcast, please leave us a rating. And for daily inspiration and business tips, follow Allan on Instagram. Until next time, remember, we build the future one entrepreneur at a time.